The quilt block I have for you today is a log cabin quilt block. It's my all-time favorite quilt block and quilt. It's so versatile, it can do so many different things. And it was the very first quilt I ever did. It was a log cabin wreath. It was a Christmas wreath. I found it in a pattern around Christmas time. I was on my winter break from college. And when I was in college, I had two babies, and it was just before my final semester before I would graduate. And so I was looking for something to do to occupy my time because I wasn't studying. So I found a magazine, and it had a Christmas wreath in it. And let's see if you can see this Christmas wreath over here. It looks similar to this. I don't know what it actually really looked like, because as with almost all the quilts I make, I give them away or sell them. And I remember when I saw this in a magazine, I went to a craft store that sold fabric, and I had no idea the difference between cotton and polyester or whatever. So I went and took the picture of the quilt, and you can see that the background fabric has little red dots or little red hearts, and I would take that and look at each fabric in there and go pick a fabric like that. So if it was a white background with little dots, red dots, I chose that. So this is similar to the quilt I made, and it is a log cabin. It's got 4 blocks across and 4 blocks down, and it has this little wreath shape in it and all the Christmas fabrics in it. So that's really it was really my first quilt, and I have no idea how I cut the fabric, because I don't think I had ever heard of a rotary cutter before. And when I quilted it, I used the stab method, where you just press the needle down and you pull it down from the bottom and you push it up and then you pull it. So you just kind of stab all your stitches. So I have no idea what they look like. I ended up donating it to a fundraiser, an auction fundraiser for a family of my sister's friend, and her 4-year-old son had passed away from aplastic anemia, which is some kind of blood cancer, and they were trying to do fundraising to raise money to pay some of the bills. This is the quilt over here, if you can see it, and that's kind of what it looked like. And what I like about the log cabin block is, if you look at it, it's really a giant half square triangle, because it has a light side and a dark side. So anything you can do, any kind of design you can make with a half square triangle, you can make with a log cabin block, just on a bigger scale. So if I move myself over here, I can show you, I'll have a link to this. This is 10 quilts you can make from layer cake squares, and it's a video. But you take the 10-inch squares and you just make big half square triangles out of them. And here are 10 layout options. So any of these options you have over here, you can do the same thing with your log cabin block, because it's a light side and a dark side. I mean, the possibilities are nearly endless what you can do. That's just an ad. And there's more. There's layout 7, and there's 10. So I chose 10 just to show you, because it's a good way to show you the versatility of this block. So let's get busy, and I'll show you how to do the block, and I'll have information on how to make this quilt, or which fabrics to use for this quilt, and also for a bigger quilt where you can use your scraps, your jelly roll scraps. So let's get started. Okay, so here is the block, the log cabin. It's 10 inches. And I'm going to start putting the scan for the video here. So if you have this printed out and you want to go back to the video, you can scan the code that will be there once I get it. And it'll take you to the video that you're watching now. So here's the diagram, and it shows the pieces. They're all 2.5-inch cut. So you can use your jelly roll strips or your leftover jelly rolls. Here's the sample layout. This is the wreath I showed you and told you about. And for this, you'll need 1 strip of red and 15 assorted green strips and 9 assorted light strips. Basically, for each block, you need 1 strip of the accent and a half a strip of the background fabric, because you have more for the accent fabrics. So this is 16 blocks, and then the red and the 15 assorted are for the accents, and the 9 assorted are for the light strips. So that tells you an easy way to gauge how many strips you need. These are the patches, and here patch A. They're all 2.5 inches wide. Patch A is 10.5 inches long. B is 8.5 inches long. C, 6.5. D is 4.5. And E is 2.5. If you want to cut patches individually, you can. It shows you here how many you need. There are really no AccuQuilt dies for this. You could use your 2.5 inch strip cutter and then subcut those into the sizes you need if you want to do that. At the bottom here, if you want to make a 60 by 80 finished quilt, you'll need 48 blocks, set 6 across and 8 down. The light fabrics, you need 25 assorted strips. And this tells you how many patches to cut. And the dark fabrics, you need 48 assorted strips at 2.5 inches. And this tells you how many of those to cut. The fabrics I've chosen are just scraps. And I have some already cut here because I'm going to make a bigger quilt. I'll show you how to do these. For the background strips, I'm using one fabric. You have less strips of the light fabrics because you don't have the big 10.5 inch piece that you need to cut. So for one strip, you get nearly enough for 2 blocks. And what you're going to do is, I have 2 strips here, and I have the strip completely open because this is just barely, if you have 22 inches when it's folded, you can get all the pieces you need. Otherwise, we'll have to go to the next strip to cut the 2.5 inches. And I'll show you that in just a minute. But I'm doing it open so I can get more pieces out of it. Cut off the selvage. And I'm going to cut the large pieces first. For the background, you need the 8.5, 6.5, 4.5, and 2.5. For that, I use my ruler this way. And I'm going to measure off 8.5 inches here. And just line up one of the lines with the top edge of the strip and cut. So here's my 8.5, and keep these in separate stacks. Next is a 6.5, and then a 4.5, and a 2.5. And then we'll do that again. 8.5, 6.5. Oh, I don't know why I'm not doing that right. 4.5. And you see, this is not enough to get another 2.5. That's why you need one extra strip of the background. All right, so we'll keep these in separate stacks over here. And that's how you cut the light pieces. And it's in here, in these instructions, it tells you what I just did. For the accent fabric, you need 1 strip per block. I'm going to cut off the selvage. And these pieces start with 10.5. So we'll mark the 10.5 mark. 10.5, and then I have my stacks here. 8.5. And you can stack strips if you like, 5, 6, 7, 8, however many you're comfortable cutting at once. So that's 10.5, 8.5, and now we need a 6.5 and a 4.5. And a 2.5. And you do have leftovers for this, so we'll have to come up with something to make with these. And that's how the cutting goes. Now what we're going to do to mix these up, I'm going to take the accent fabrics and put them over here. These are all in order as I cut them out. And I want to be able to mix them up so we won't have 2 of the same fabrics in a block. So what we do is start anywhere, and here I'm going to leave this stack by itself, just as it is. Over here, I'm going to take one fabric from the top. Let me move this over. Put it down, and then put this on top. So I've taken the fabric from the top and put it at the bottom. Now I'm going to take two fabrics, one, two, put it down, and put this on top. It's shuffling the fabrics. Now we'll take three, one, two, three, put it down and put this on top. And now we'll take four, one, two, three, four, and put this on top. So now these are ready. I can just pick from the top and keep going. And I know my fabrics won't be repeated in the same block. Since I'm using the same fabric for my light fabric, there's no need to shuffle. But if you were using different fabrics, then shuffle those the same way we shuffled these. This is what the block looks like, and you start stitching it from the center. These two squares, 2-inch squares, are like this. And then I've got these in order. So you'll put these two, sew these two together. Then you put this, and you're kind of going in a counterclockwise direction. Then you put this one, and this one, that. I have to move this up some more. That, and then this. So I'm going to show you just the individual pieces of how they are put together. And here's your finished block. This is where you can see the blocks, how they sort of look like a half square triangle, and how you can make different designs with them. Now what I'm going to do to finish my quilt is I'm going to chain piece. So I'll take all of these and sew them together just in a chain. Then clip them apart, press them, and then take this stack to the machine and piece it here. You have to remember, make sure you're piecing it on the right side because it may not work out right. But we are piecing in a clockwise direction in this case. You can piece in the other direction, just make sure you know it's the right direction. So I hope you make a log cabin block. I think you'll like it and all the design possibilities you can do. And thank you for watching.